So it is now 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday the 27th, is that right? Yeah. 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday the 27th. We spoke last when I just woke up yesterday. Early in the morning yesterday. And yesterday was largely blown. I got a little bit of filing done, but it was a day mostly spent ranting on the internet. I guess I just needed to take a break. I was a little bit tired, obviously, distracted. I've been off the internet for most of the last week, and I just wanted to rant. I went to bed early, or I passed out early. I didn't go to bed. I literally passed out after it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon that I literally passed out, right? So I was only awake for like 11 hours or something. And I got quite a bit of sleep this morning. I was up a little after midnight. So we are starting the vlog today on Sunday. I just kind of want to... I was supposed to finish the filing for inri019 yesterday and then get something to eat. Instead, I got something to eat because I was hungry, and then I kept ranting, and I never... Like I say, it was a short day, but I just never got to doing it, right? So, I need to, more or less just repeat the day. I do this sometimes, right? I set out to do something, and then I pass out early or whatever, and then I just repeat the day. So, that's the idea for today. Saturday is blown, and let's start Sunday where we meant to start Saturday. That said, I have accomplished something already today. I've created a new single for the vocal. This was something that I've been thinking about for a while, anyways. But I actually placed it, in sequence, which is at the end of. I initially was going to put it at the end of period 1.2, and then I thought, well, there's a couple more vocal tracks. Maybe I'll put it at the end of period 1.3, which is the end of period 1. But I kind of looked at it more, and it's like it didn't. There wasn't really a way to make sense of it in a way that was they could fit on one disc, right? So if I put it at the end of period 1.3, I'd have to skip a track, or move a track to bonus, and it didn't. If I put it at 1.2, then I can actually move some tracks in from the initial demo, right? So there's a track at the end called "Nothing to Say," which is as the way that I edited it, it's as good as anything else. On the vocal mix. I just want to remaster it maybe a little bit so that it has the same gloss. There's a couple other things that I'm kind of thinking the same thing of. So, we'll see how that works out in the end. If it works out in the end. No, it'll work out in the end. There'll be a couple of those tracks on there anyways. I'm thinking Nothing to Say and maybe Screwed Up and maybe Unintelligible. We will see how that works out in the end. I just need to, I do need to remaster Too Cold, which is the track at the end of the period 1.2. In fact, it may even be considered period 1.3. So, I mean, really, that's where I'm putting the vocal compilations, and it's right on the cusp between 1.3 and 1.2. It's actually a single passed, right? So there's going to be Enriched, which is the second record for period 1.2, and there's 3 compilation records. That could be actually sequenced before Enriched, but I'm putting them after it just because the In-Rejected, the In-Remixed, and the In-Reclaimed. And then there's a single for a track called Too Cold, which I have to put after In-Reclaimed because I don't have the demo tape. I don't have the tape for it. I don't have the tape for In-Reclaimed. Sorry, In-Reclaimed was all the tapes. I don't have the tape for Too Cold, and I don't have the tape for Liquefy. There was no tape for Book It. I just deleted the files. So I couldn't reconstruct that one. There's that little point right at the end where before I started where I had moved from tape-based recording to computer-based recording, but I didn't save the files. But there was a tape there, and I think I gave it to a friend named Greg, and he taped over it, and then I gave it back to him because he taped over it. I let him borrow my 4-track and that was the tape that was in there. And I said to myself, well, I have it all digitized anyways, just go ahead and use the tape, which was a big mistake, it turns out, because I should have, or I used it for something else. Whatever I did with it, it's gone. So I can't have an instrumental version of this track, Too Cold. Too Cold was initially on the second record, but I had to take it off because I can't take the vocals out, right? So I'm splitting it off into a single instead, and that's after period 1.2. So that's where period 1.3 starts, is at, and I mean, and it is different, right? It's a different kind of song. It's much more focused on a guitar solo. There's not really anything like that on either of the first two discs. So it does work better that way, but it also has vocals, so I'm going to put it on the vocal comp. Or am I? You know what? Let me think about this. Yeah, because here's the thing. I'm going to make a second vocal comp, right? And the second vocal comp, all the tracks are like 10 minutes long. And they're kind of more proggy. You know what? That probably fits better there. Yeah. And I can move that back. Okay. Yeah, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to swap them. And then I'll put that at the end of that sequence. Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense to me. Okay. So period 1.3 will start clean with Too Cold. I'm going to have to close inri019 shortly, once I get it done writing, which is what I'm going to get back to right now. So that's what I'm doing, and then we'll be back relatively soon to talk about inri019. I'm confident of that. Okay, so it's about 10 minutes to 2. I've got my write-up for inri019 done, cover art's done, the whole back panel, whole thing, it's all done. Done. I also got I spent a little bit of time doing, I'm late again, right? So I spent a little bit of time, or why is it so late in the afternoon? I spent a little bit of time doing some further cover art, cleaning up a couple other things. And I did get something to eat already, so I've already eaten. Meaning that I should be able to head into the other room and do some quality work on Boogeyman. I'm going to need to sort through some things. I don't know if I'm going to get the vocal version done today. Just because I'm going to have to sit down and listen to it and, figure out which one it is that I want. That's going to be kind of the big. I've got like 8 versions of it now. So which I think I'll probably want the one with this just footsteps, right? That's probably the best idea. But then there's ones where I've got like a mob of boogeymen, and boogeymen are everywhere from every which way. You've got the drunken boogeymen. So I don't know. We'll find out which one I think works the best. I'm gonna guess it's probably just the one with the slight. The slight delay to kind of create a footstep effect. But what we're here to talk about right now is we're going to close inri019. So let's talk about this. What is inri019? inri019 is my second symphony. It was initially the last part of my first demo tape in 1996, and it was written as a connected piece. If you listen to it, and I mean it's the original demo version is a bonus download only part of the new package is there. And like you can tell, you can tell it was written together, right? So you start off with somebody's really frustrated, and then there's this batch of noise in between, and then they kill themselves. I will acknowledge that there was a little bit of an influence from 9 Inch Nails, as there is from everything else that I did during that period, dramatically so. But I mean, I think I twisted it around enough. And I mean, it's a meme. The thing, I mean, it's not like it was the most original idea in the first place, right? So, but that's the basic concept there. Somebody's angry, they're frustrated, nobody's listening to them, and it's the focus is that's the lack of well, it's just about being young and frustrated and nobody's listening to me, right? Um, I talked about this previously, and I'm not going to go through it in too much detail now. I kind of want to move on from it, because this is also the last substantial vocal track, besides Boogeyman, which is coming up. But I mean, that's just silliness, and it's really old. Boogeyman's actually my oldest, so I'm finishing with my oldest. So yeah, I mean, it was written as a suite, right? And so when I redid it, I maintained that, right? In fact, I even sampled the saying in between, and built it up with some sequencing and some Star Wars samples and some other things. But like I wanted to maintain it as a single track, and that's actually the main reason it didn't end up on the first demo. This was it was recorded earlier. It was in March, so I mean, like the material was there to put on my first demo. It's just I didn't have space, and I wasn't completely happy with it either, right? So, but I did build it up eventually. We put a part at the start, we put a part at the end, and we made it big. It's 20 minutes. At the time, it was by far the longest, conceptual piece I'd ever written. 20 minutes. I mean, besides the Eat My Fuck thing I did over the summer, but I mean, that was just noise, right? Like as a cohesive piece. I mean, my first, what I'm calling my first symphony now was longer, but it wasn't written as a piece, right? It was hobbled together afterwards, and it's just kind of a coincidence that it was there. This was the first thing that I'd written. Actually, you know what? I think this is probably the first thing I'd written that was more than 10 minutes. And it was pushing 20 minutes. So, no. There's some tracks on the first demo that are over 10 minutes. Yeah. And there's some other stuff that kind of goes together in the first demo. Yeah. Okay. Still, I think it's certainly the first thing that's more than 15 minutes. The point is just that it's by far the biggest, most epic thing I'd written to that point. And keep in mind that when I was putting it together, I was just coming out of the failure of Circus, right? So I was kind of still thinking of that, and I think maybe a lot of the energy that I would have put into Circus ended up being put into this track instead. It's a satire of Christianity. In the end, like I say, it was initially it was the story, right, of this person's being persecuted, and then they kill themselves, and I mean the initial demo there was no resurrection, right, but I built it up, right. I mean the last track on the initial demo was called Resurrection, and I thought it fit as well, right, because of the whole Inri concept, which I hadn't really made a decision to move on yet, but I kind of felt like it was closing, right? I mean, I knew that I was shifting musical interests, right? I was moving out of the kind of poppy or pop phase and moving into like the next phase is really pretty much pure noise until it kind of stabilizes in a kind of prog, kind of proggy, or I don't want to say proggy-er kind of sound, right, with longer instrumental sections, and etc. Which you hear come out in the last track on the second record, which I'm removing, right? So, this is a kind of a transition in that sense, even though it wasn't done right at the end, right? It was recorded in March, and I cleaned it up, and I sequenced it, and I built it into that epic as I was building the second record, right? It wouldn't have ended up the way it did with the conceptual concept the way that it did if it wasn't for the need to build it into a record and the feeling that the record was ending, right? So this was all kind of coming together in that sense. I mean, even with, like I said, with the understanding that it was written as that epic, it wouldn't have been as epic, right? I also want to point out that there was initially, I don't want to say it was about Kurt Cobain, because it wasn't. It was more that I was using that as it was the medium that I was exploring the topic through, right? I've been careful to remove any references of that to the final version. Because I think that's the biggest hokey part of it, right? I mean, otherwise, to be honest with you, the track doesn't stand up that badly. When you compare it to some of the other stuff that I was doing at the period, this is much more advanced. It's much more grown up, except for that recited suicide note in the middle of it, which pulls it. It was a mistake. From a writing perspective, it was an artistic mistake. Even if, like I say, I put it there to flesh the idea out, right? It's not a good idea. And nowadays, it just comes off as sounding silly, right? And it's an anachronism. It's a distraction. It's not what the song's really about. So rather than distract people with it, let's just focus on what the song is about, which is the there was a parallel there, right? This kind of idea of Cobain as Jesus' character, which it was always ridiculous, but it was something that existed, right? But like I say, let's just throw that out. It's just silliness. We don't need it. It's just adding a layer of complexity that is too easy to misconstrue, right? It's far too easy to read things into it that I didn't intend if I leave that layer in. So let's just throw it out. What I want you to focus on is more the religious analogy as kind of sacrilege, right? It's sacrilegious, openly, blatantly. Everything I did in that period was blatantly sacrilegious, and I enjoyed it, and I still enjoy poking people in the eye about it, right? I'm making fun of this with no no shame or what's the word I'm looking for here? I have no pause whatsoever as I'm going through with this, right? So, the self-inflicted martyrdom. It's the suicide is you stupid fuck, you're killing yourself, you moron, right? And none of this, he knows they know what they do. Shit, this is you're a fucking idiot. Get off the fucking cross, So. Just from that kind of, realist perspective of just kind of looking back, it's like, yeah, I'm being persecuted. Yeah, people are making fun of me, and I'm gonna kill myself. Just the absurdity of it, right? That's kind of the intent in the satire, is just to draw attention to how ridiculous the whole thing is. So you want to look at it as though it's an elaborate joke, and I think I've been pretty clear. You don't have to read the vlogs to see that, or even read the commentary to see that this is a joke. Like my inri020 cover art is the Station of the Cross where Jesus gets smacked down there. That's just how do you take that seriously, right? So or something I did this morning was I created a cover art for the inri-cited, it's the what's the vocal thing I was talking about, and the cover art is children in a choir, the children in a choir singing such classics as "Fuck the Dead" and "I Did Your Mom," right? I mean, if you can't see it's a joke, like, I'll take your money. Like it's just it's so heavy-handed. I don't know how you can miss it, right? And that's really all. I mean, that's the extent to it, right? I'm looking at the whole Christian thing, and I'm just sadistically laughing at it. And like I said, that's a common theme all the way through this period. But it is about to turn over, and it is about to close. This is the climax. This is the big ending thing. It's my second symphony, and really the first thing that's written as a symphony. It's the remastered reconstruction and reversion of the second version of it. So it's been through multiple revisions. It's done, but it's also it's the big ending thing, right? So any proper analysis of the Inri period of my work will need to end with this as the climax. This as the major end focal point, right? This is where it all leads to, is this simple synthesizer part that fades you off to oblivion, that shoots you off into the galaxy, that sends you home. So yeah, that's that. I'm gonna get back to doing inri020, and I guess I don't think it will be done tonight. I think